The boy who dreamed too big. Early life in struggles. What does it mean to dream too big? For most children, dreams live in the world of play. A boy dreams of being a firefighter, a girl dreams of being a dancer, another child dreams of flying like a superhero. These are fantasies, fleeting visions, the kind that fade as we grow older. But for Elon Musk, dreams were not toys. They were blueprints. Born on June 28, 1971 in Pretoria, South Africa, Elon Musk came into a world that was not ready for his imagination. His childhood was not the kind celebrated in glossy magazines. It was marked by isolation, misunderstanding, and pain. He was not the strongest boy, nor the most popular. In fact, he was the opposite, quiet, awkward, and often lost in his own mind. While other children spent afternoons chasing soccer balls or playing in the streets, Elon would vanish into books. He devoured knowledge at an almost frightening pace. Science fiction novels, encyclopedias, engineering manuals, anything that could expand the walls of his imagination. He once read through an entire set of encyclopedias, page by page, as though the answers to his future might be hidden in plain text. But the world around him did not celebrate his obsession with knowledge. Instead, it punished him for it. Elon was bullied relentlessly in school. Not teased in the casual way many children experience, but physically hunted. Groups of boys would corner him, push him down staircases, and beat him so badly he sometimes couldn't walk. There was a day, he later recalled, when he was kicked in the head so hard that he blacked out and had to be hospitalized. This was not the childhood of a prodigy bathed in admiration. It was the childhood of an outcast. And yet it was in those quiet, bruised hours that Elon's imagination became his sanctuary. Where others saw a weak boy, Elon saw galaxies. Where they saw a target, he saw possibility. When he read Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, a seed was planted in his mind. The survival of humanity would depend on becoming a multi-planetary species. It was not just a story for him. It was a mission. At 12 years old, Elon turned his imagination into action. He coded and sold his first video game, Blastar, a crude space shooter, yes, but it was proof that even as a child, he could take an idea from his mind and make it real. Proof that his imagination had value. Still, his family life was no safe haven. His parents divorced when he was young, and his relationship with his father, Elon Musk, was complicated and often painful. Elon would later describe his father as a difficult man, a source of emotional struggle that left scars deeper than the bruises from the playground. But perhaps this hardship forged something inside him. Perhaps without it, his resilience would not have been as sharp, his hunger not as relentless. Because Elon learned early the world would not hand him comfort. If he wanted to shift his life, he would have to carve it with his own hands. By 17, Elon faced a decision. South Africa, under apartheid, was a place of conflict and limited horizons. The military draft loomed. The future felt small, confined. Elon knew that if he stayed, his dreams of space and technology would wither in the shadows of politics and division. He had to escape. And so, armed with little more than determination and the conviction that his destiny lay elsewhere, Elon left South Africa. At 17, he crossed continents, heading first to Canada, then eventually to the United States, the land where the future felt possible. It was not an easy leap. He arrived with almost nothing. No wealth, no connections, no certainty, only a belief, fragile but unshakable, that his ideas could shape the world. Most people would see a teenager leaving his country with little more than a suitcase and call it reckless. But Elon saw it differently. He wasn't running away from South Africa. He was running toward his future. And so, the boy who was bullied, beaten, and misunderstood carried his vision across oceans. He was no longer just a dreamer. He was becoming a builder. The world didn't know it yet, but the boy who once sat alone with books, escaping into galaxies of imagination, was about to shift not just his life, but the life of humanity itself. When Elon Musk stepped off the plane in North America, he was just 17 years old. No wealth, no safety net, no roadmap to success. All he carried with him was a stubborn belief that his destiny was not to remain in the shadows, but to chase the light of possibility. He began his journey in Canada, enrolling at Queen's University in Ontario. It wasn't the grandest university, nor was it the most obvious choice, But for Elon, it was the first stepping stone. A way out of South Africa and into a future where his dreams might breathe. But Canada was not kind to him in the beginning. He was broke. He often struggled to afford even basic necessities. Some nights, dinner was little more than hot dogs and cheap noodles. He took odd jobs to survive, shoveling dirt, cleaning boilers, and doing whatever work would keep him afloat. And yet, through it all, his vision never dimmed. While his hands blistered with labor, his mind wandered into galaxies, electric engines, and computer codes. Where others saw a paycheck, Elon saw a stepping. By the mid-1990s, Elon transferred to the University of Pennsylvania in the United States. There, he studied both physics and economics. A strange combination for most, but for Elon, it made perfect sense. Physics explained the laws of the universe. Economics explained the rules of survival in business. Together, they were the twin engines that would power his journey. He was a student, but he lived like a founder. With his roommate, he rented a large house and transformed it into a nightclub, charging students to enter and dance. By day, Elon sat in classrooms absorbing equations and theories. By night, he managed 100 strangers drinking and dancing in his living room. It was chaotic. It was exhausting. But it was also proof. Elon was not afraid to bend the rules, to take risks, to create something out of nothing. Hunger that wasn't just about food. Even then, Elon's ambitions towered above the ordinary. While many students dreamed of safe jobs, consulting firms, investment banks, Elon dreamed of revolutions. He spoke of 3 industries that in his mind would define the future. The internet, a renewable energy. Space exploration. Most laughed. Some shook their heads. How could a broke immigrant with no family fortune possibly change 3 of the hardest industries in existence? But Elon did not measure possibility the way others did. To him, difficulty was not a wall, it was a doorway. And he would not stop knocking until it opened. After graduation, Elon faced a decision. He had been accepted into a prestigious PhD program at Stanford University. But on the very first day, he walked away. Why? Because the world was changing. It was the mid-1990s. The internet was exploding into existence. A new digital frontier was being written, and Elon could feel it in his bones. The future was not in classrooms. It was in code. So, with nothing but borrowed money, Elon and his brother Kimball started their first company, ZP2. It was a simple idea but powerful for its time. They created online city guides, maps, directories, and business listings years before Google Maps or Yelp would exist. It was the digital roadmap for the modern world. But the beginning was brutal. Elon and Kimball couldn't afford an apartment. They rented a small office and slept on the floor. They showered at the local YMCA. Their lives became a blur of coding, pitching, and surviving on fast food. Investors didn't take them seriously. Newspapers thought the internet was a fad. Money was scarce, sleep was scarcer, and the dream of success seemed distant. And yet, Elon kept going. His stubborn resilience became his superpower. He coded late into the night, fueled not by comfort, but by conviction. He knew the internet was the future, and he would not stop until others saw it too. First taste of success. Eventually, the persistence paid off. Investors began to notice ZP2. The product grew. Contracts were signed with major newspapers, and suddenly, the broke immigrant who once scrubbed boilers was sitting across from executives in suits, selling them the future. In 1999, Compaq acquired ZP2 for $307 million. Elon's share was $22 million. For the first time in his life, Elon Musk was rich. Not wealthy like the moguls of Wall Street, but enough to shift his life entirely. Enough to buy comfort. Enough to stop struggling. But comfort was never the goal. The fire that burned deeper for most. This would have been the end of the story. Sell a company. Become a millionaire. Retire young. Live happily ever after. But Elon Musk was different. He didn't want comfort. He wanted impact. And so, instead of retreating into luxury, he dove headfirst into risk again. He would take almost every dollar he earned and put it into his next ventures. Companies so ambitious that most people called them insane. But that was the pattern of Elon Musk's life, from bullied child, to broke immigrant, to millionaire coder. And still, the boy who once dreamed of galaxies was restless. Because his vision was never about money. It was about building the future. And this was only the beginning. Success is a dangerous illusion. From the outside, it looks like a destination. You climb the mountain, plant your flag, and the story ends. But for Elon Musk, success was never an ending. It was a beginning. At 28, Elon Musk was already a millionaire. After the sale of Zippy2, he could have stopped. He could have purchased luxury homes, yachts, or an easy life of comfort. But Elon was restless. His vision was not satisfied by wealth. He believed the internet was still in its infancy, and money itself, the way humans exchanged value, was broken. Banks were slow, outdated, and clunky. Elon wanted to change that. So in 1999, he founded XCOM, an online financial services company that aimed to revolutionize how money moved across the world. It was radical for its time. People doubted anyone would trust sending money online. But Elon saw the future. XCOM later merged with Confinity, and together, they became PayPal. The product spread like wildfire. Suddenly, sending money was as simple as sending an email. But the road was not smooth. Investors clashed with Elon. He was eventually pushed out as CEO, replaced by others who doubted his style of leadership. Many entrepreneurs would have walked away bitter, resentful. But Elon focused on what mattered, the vision. And in 2002, when eBay acquired PayPal for $1.5 billion, Elon's share left him with nearly $180 million. For most people, this would have been enough for a lifetime. But for Elon, this was just fuel. Betting it all, when he looked at his fortune, Elon did not see security. He saw opportunity. He asked himself a question. What problems will define the future of humanity? His answer was bold. A space exploration, renewable energy, the survival of civilization itself. And so, instead of locking his wealth into safe investments, Elon bet nearly everything. He poured his fortune into two impossible dreams: rockets and electric cars. SpaceX, the dream of the stars. In 2002, Elon founded SpaceX, the mission to make humanity a multi-planetary species. To most, it was insanity. Rockets were the domain of governments, not startups. Billions of dollars, decades of research, national armies of engineers. And yet here was Elon, a man with no background in aerospace, declaring that his private company would send rockets into space. He hired a small team of engineers, working in a warehouse in El Segundo, California. They were young, hungry, and willing to chase the impossible. But rockets are unforgiving. The first SpaceX rocket, Falcon 1, launched in 2006. It soared into the sky and then exploded. The second rocket launched in 2007. It climbed higher and then failed. The third launch came in 2008. The team's hopes were high. Years of work had gone into this moment. But once again, the rocket failed. 3 launches, 3 failures. SpaceX was bleeding money. The engineers were exhausted. Investors were losing faith. Elon had already poured in over $100 million of his own fortune. And now, the future of SpaceX hung by a thread. At the same time, Elon was investing heavily in another radical dream, Tesla Motors. In 2004, Elon joined a small team of founders who wanted to build fully electric cars. The idea sounded absurd. At the time, electric cars were slow, ugly, and impractical. The auto industry laughed at the very thought of competing with gasoline. But Elon believed in a different future, a world where clean energy could drive performance and style. He poured millions into Tesla, pushing for the creation of the Tesla Roadster. Yet Tesla, like SpaceX, was drowning in problems. Production delays, technical failures, and rising costs left the company teetering. Critics mocked Tesla as nothing more than a rich man's toy. By 2008, both SpaceX and Tesla were burning through cash at terrifying speed. Elon had gone from millionaire to nearly broke. The dreamer who once slept on office floors was now facing something far darker: total collapse. 2008 was the year Elon Musk came closest to losing everything. The financial crisis rocked the world. Investors pulled back. Credit dried up. Both Tesla and SpaceX were on the edge of bankruptcy. Elon had a choice: keep some of his money safe for himself, or put it all on the line. He made the decision that defined his life. He split his last remaining fortune between Tesla and SpaceX, keeping almost nothing for himself. Friends thought he was insane. Even close allies told him to stop. But Elon could not. To him, failure was not an option. Humanity's future was at stake. He later recalled, "I thought we were going to die. I thought everything was going to fail. But I didn't want to look back and know that I didn't give it everything." In September 2008, With the company on its last breath, SpaceX attempted its fourth launch of Falcon 1. This was the final chance. If it failed, SpaceX would be finished. The rocket ignited. It climbed into the sky, seconds passed, minutes. The team watched in silence, breath held. And then the rocket reached orbit. For the first time, a privately built rocket had successfully entered Earth's orbit. SpaceX had done the impossible. Days later, NASA awarded SpaceX a $1.6 billion contract. The company was saved. And soon after, Tesla secured vital funding that pulled it back from the edge. Elon Musk had risked everything. He had walked through the fire of failure, humiliation, and near ruin. And he had emerged stronger. He once said, "When something is important enough, you do it even if the odds are not in your favor." For Elon, the odds had been nearly impossible. But against all logic, all doubt, all failure, he had survived. This was the moment his life truly shifted. Not because he had money again. Not because the world finally respected him. But because he had proven, to himself, to his companies, and to history, that even on the edge of collapse, he would not let go of the dream. From this crucible of fire, a new Elon Musk was born. Not just an entrepreneur, not just a dreamer, but a symbol of relentless resilience. And the world was beginning to realize this was only the beginning. 2008 had nearly destroyed Elon Musk. He had been broken financially, emotionally, and physically. But from that fire, something extraordinary happened. He refused to give up. And when you refuse to quit, life eventually shifts. The fourth Falcon 1 launch had saved SpaceX. NASA's $1.6 billion contract brought not only money but legitimacy. For the first time, the world had to take Elon seriously. A private company had done what only nations had done before, put a rocket into orbit. At the same time, Tesla was clawing its way back. Investors who had once the idea of electric cars began to reconsider. The Tesla Roadster was still expensive and niche, but it had proven something critical. Electric cars didn't have to be boring. They could be fast. They could be sleek. They could be desirable. Still, the critics didn't disappear overnight. Headlines called Elon reckless. Analysts predicted Tesla's death every few months. SpaceX was described as a fluke. The doubters were loud, but Elon had already faced the abyss. Compared to bankruptcy and humiliation, criticism was just noise. Tesla. Driving toward the impossible, Tesla's next great test was the Model S. The Roadster had shown promise, but the Model S was designed to shatter the world's expectations. It wasn't just an electric car. It was a luxury sedan that could outperform gasoline giants like BMW and Mercedes. Building it was torture. Production problems mounted. Costs soared. Skeptics said it would never work. But in 2012, Tesla delivered the first Model S, and it stunned the industry. The car was fast, elegant, and technologically ahead of its time. Motor Trend named it Car of the Year. Customers raved. Slowly, the narrative shifted. Tesla was no longer a punchline. It was a pioneer. But Tesla's mission was bigger than cars. Elon spoke often about his true goal, to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. The Model S was just the first step. Meanwhile, SpaceX was not content with one success. In 2010, the company launched the Falcon 9. It was bigger, more powerful, and most importantly, reusable. Reusability was the holy grail of spaceflight. Traditionally, rockets were discarded after one use, making space travel insanely expensive. Elon's vision was to build rockets that could land, be refueled, and fly again, like airplanes. At first, the idea seemed absurd. Rockets were not supposed to land, they were supposed to crash into the ocean. But in 2015, the impossible happened. A Falcon 9 rocket launched into the sky, delivered its payload into orbit, and then returned, landing vertically on a launch pad. The world gasped. SpaceX had just rewritten the rules of spaceflight. Elon Musk, the immigrant once laughed at for his dreams, was now making history. While Tesla and SpaceX consumed most of his energy, Elon's vision stretched further. He backed SolarCity, a company co-founded by his cousins, to bring solar energy to homes across America. He pushed for the creation of massive gigafactories to produce batteries at scale. He spoke about colonizing Mars, building underground transportation tunnels, and creating artificial intelligence safeguards. Critics accused him of being distracted, overextended, even delusional. But Elon's mind never operated in one lane. He saw the future as an interconnected web, and he was determined to pull it all together. As SpaceX rockets began to land and Tesla cars began to sell, the public perception shifted dramatically. In the early 2000s, Elon Musk was the crazy .com guy who wasted his money on rockets. By the mid-2010s, he was being compared to visionaries like Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, and Steve Jobs. Young people saw him as proof that impossible dreams could become reality. Journalists who once doubted him now marveled at his audacity. Governments that ignored him began partnering with him. But beneath the headlines and applause, Elon remained restless. Success was never the end goal. He still worried that humanity was not moving fast enough toward renewable energy, toward Mars, toward survival. Even in his rise, Elon carried enormous pressure. Running two companies that constantly flirted with failure meant sleepless nights, personal sacrifices, and brutal work hours. His personal life suffered. Relationships fractured under the weight of his obsession with work. Critics accused him of being too harsh on employees, of demanding the impossible. But Elon himself admitted he was driven by something deeper than comfort. "I don't ever want to be happy," he once said. "I want to be useful." And usefulness for Elon meant risking everything for humanity's future. By the mid-2010s, the shift was undeniable. Tesla was on its way to becoming one of the most valuable car companies in the world. SpaceX was delivering cargo to the International Space Station and planning missions to Mars. SolarCity was expanding renewable energy. The man who had once been mocked for dreaming too big was now living proof that resilience could bend reality. He wasn't just changing industries. He was rewriting them. And yet, even as he stood in the spotlight of history, Elon Musk's eyes were fixed not on applause, but on the horizon. Because for him, success was never about recognition. It was about preparing humanity for challenges still to come. And those challenges would test him, and the world, even more than anything he had faced before. Success is often mistaken for wealth, fame, or power. But Elon Musk's story is proof that success is something far more fragile and far more powerful. It is resilience. The refusal to quit when everything is falling apart. The man who refused to quit. When Elon Musk faced ridicule for his ideas, he didn't stop. When 3 rockets exploded and millions of dollars went up in smoke, he didn't stop. When Tesla was called a joke, when bankruptcy loomed, when even his closest allies urged him to give up, still, he didn't stop. The truth is, Elon Musk has failed more times than most people ever try. And yet, history doesn't remember the failures. It remembers the man who refused to stay down. Elon's journey offers lessons not just about technology, but about life. 1. Dream ridiculously big. Most people limit their dreams to what seems realistic. Elon didn't. While others were building small apps or safe businesses, he set his eyes on Mars, on transforming energy, on rewriting transportation itself. Dreams that big sound insane, until you make them real. 2. Risk everything for what matters. Elon didn't hoard his wealth. He didn't hide behind security. He poured almost every dollar he had into Tesla and SpaceX, even when it meant risking his own comfort. He lived with the belief that if something is important enough, you should pursue it, even when the odds are against you. 3. Fail forward. 3 rocket explosions would have ended most startups. But to Elon, each failure was a step closer to success. He didn't see failure as final. He saw it as data, as progress, as proof he was still moving. 4. Ignore the noise from newspapers to analysts. The world laughed at Elon. They mocked his cars, doubted his rockets, questioned his sanity. But the noise never mattered. The vision did. 5. Work like the future depends on you. Because it does. Elon often worked 100-hour weeks. He sacrificed comfort, relationships, even his health. To him, the future of humanity was worth more than personal ease. You don't have to work exactly like Elon. But his story is a reminder the future is built not by those who wait, but by those who act with urgency. This story is not really about Elon Musk. It's about you. Because Elon's journey is a mirror, showing us what happens when ordinary humans choose extraordinary persistence. He was not born a genius billionaire. He was a boy who loved books, a boy who was bullied, a boy who left his home with nothing but a vision. What changed his life was not luck. It was the moment he refused to let failure define him. And that same shift can happen in anyone's life, including yours. So, what will you risk? What dream feels too big, too impossible, too crazy? The world will try to convince you to stop. Your failures will try to convince you that you're not capable. But if Elon Musk's story teaches anything, it is this: when you keep going, when you hold on even in the darkest moment, life shifts. And that shift is where the impossible becomes possible. Today, Elon Musk is seen as one of the most influential figures of the 21st century. His companies continue to push boundaries: reusable rockets, electric cars, solar energy, even the dream of colonizing Mars. But the legacy is not the rockets or the cars or even Mars. The legacy is resilience. The legacy is proving that failure is not final, that the future is written by those who dare to keep going. That one person, no matter how unlikely, can shift the course of history. And if one person can do it, so can you. When life shifted for Elon Musk, it was not in the moment of wealth or success. It was in the moment of failure, when everything was falling apart, and he refused to let go. So the next time you feel like giving up, remember this: the shift is not when you succeed. The shift is when you decide not to quit. And that decision, simple, powerful, unstoppable, can change not just your life, but the future of humanity itself.